Welcome to Trading the Close on this Monday. I'm Toni Valliere with Verified Investing. And here's what's making headlines today. Bitcoin reaches a 19-month high, passing the $40,000 mark for the first time this year. Gold reaches a new record, soaring past 2,100. Alaska Airlines has agreed to buy Hawaiian Airlines for $1.9 billion. And Spotify CEO announces the company is laying off 17% of its workforce. And with Fed rate cuts looking to happen later rather than sooner, the market is surely reacting. So let's take a look at where the market stands just before the close on this Monday. The S&P 500 down 23 points, the Dow down 22, but we are seeing the biggest dip all throughout the day with the NASDAQ right now down 119 points. Well, let's bring in my very special guest today, all the way from Vancouver, Canada, host of the David Lin Report, David Lin, the man himself.
Hi, how are you?
The myth, the legend. Welcome. So good to have you.
Gee, that was a wonderful introduction. I don't think my mother thinks of me that way.
I should have done a drum roll because you are an amazing musician. We got to experience that earlier today.
Well, thank you, Toni.
But let's get into what you do each and every day on YouTube. You interview influencers in finance, business, politics, economics, technology, etc. So what's a common theme that you keep hearing from them on either the economy, whether it be stocks or Bitcoin?
Well, on the economy, people are concerned about what exactly is going to happen next year. Are we going to get a recession? Are we going to get a contraction? And how that impacts just the regular person. We'll talk about investments in just a bit, but how that impacts the regular person is whether or not you're going to lose your job, or you're going to, get your wage cut, or perhaps whether or not you're going to be able to afford your home if interest rates go up more. Those are the questions that I explore that impact the everyday person, not just somebody with a lot of money to invest in. So that's a common theme, what the economy is doing. And from there, growth in the economy impacts every single asset class. So Bitcoin, gold, you mentioned stocks. You start macro, top down, it impacts everything.
What gets you fired up? What topics do you love talking about with your guests?
So the economy impacts everyone. I'm personally interested in people's stories. I love interviewing entrepreneurs, especially people who have made it big, and just learning how they've done it. It really is inspiring. That's what gets me fired up. My audience watches me for market news, but you asked me what gets me personally fired up. I just love learning about how successful people have walked their journey and are now successful.
And we can all learn from that as well. And everybody has a fascinating story. You
Everyone.
as well. I got to interview you earlier today.
Thank you for that.
So look out for that interview on YouTube on the Verified Investing page. But let's talk about what your guests have made with predictions. What types of predictions have they made and told you about that really kind of put you on alert?
Well, a lot of people that I've talked to think that, first of all, the Federal Reserve is done raising rates. That doesn't necessarily put me on alert, but what some people are saying is that inflation is going to come back for various reasons, and that the reduction in the CPI and the PCE that we've seen over the last 18 months, that's transitory. That's going to come back for a variety of reasons. Some people say it's because we have too much debt, and because the government has so much debt they have to pay back, they have no choice but to monetize it, which means they have to print more money, which is going to cause inflation. And so the amount of debt in the country is troubling. We have over $30 trillion of debt, federal debt. The CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, is projecting $50 trillion by the end of the decade, which is in 8 years. That's crazy. We have interest payments, federal interest payments that have just surpassed or just under $1 trillion a year, which is a third of our tax receipts from revenues from tax receipts. So tax receipts are about $3 trillion a year. A third of that is interest payments, which means the government needs to cut down. They have to cut down on Medicare, military, everything else. So how is the government going to pay back this debt? Potentially print more money, and that's going to cause inflation to spike up. That's a long-term threat that I've heard a lot on my show.
So how much are you personally influenced by your guests when it comes to investing? I know you're not a day trader or a swing trader.
So it's difficult for me to say, hey, look, this guy is negative on the economy, let's do this, versus somebody else who is the complete opposite view. I tend to just take kind of the middle ground of whatever people say to me as my own personal thesis. What makes most sense to me is the fact that I think potentially interest rates are done with their hikes. And the
Let's
economy, yeah, well, yeah, for a lot of people, unless you're holding treasuries, then you're collecting income.
True, yes.
But I think the economy will slow down. I don't think we're going to get a doomsday scenario whereby everything crashes. I think most people will be all right.
All right, what interviews do you have coming up that we should be watching for?
I did a lot of interesting things last week while I was traveling. I interviewed this lady by the name of 𝗡cie𝗿𝗱𝗩𝗡, who works for a consulting firm now, a global consulting firm, and she testified against a lot of companies who were accused of market manipulation, including BHP, BP rather, including some gold companies as well. And she really broke down how market manipulation works in the commodities markets, and from a very technical and legal perspective. I found that was really interesting.
Oh, no doubt. I think a lot of people would be interested in hearing that.
And just the indicators she looks at to identify whether or not the gold market is manipulated at a certain time. Traders might find that very interesting. Not that you could do anything about that information because somebody else is doing the manipulation. You just kind of have to ride the wave. But you just have to be aware of that this happens. And companies. She actually testified against an oil company, which we talked about in the interview, and they lost. They had to settle. They were moving physical natural gas around just to manipulate prices, so the inventories would be fluctuated. So there was evidence for that. Interestingly, back in 2020, when the oil price was negative for a brief period of time during the pandemic, that actually, according to her, was not a result of market manipulation, but just regular market forces. So the way she broke that down was very interesting. Look out for that one.
Yeah, for sure. I know you do this every day. Of course, even when you're traveling, you've been doing interviews as well. You spent all day with us here at Verified Investing, so I've really gotten to know David.
Okay.
You're going to learn a lot about him as well. Thank you so much for your time. We truly appreciate it. Thank you for the concert that we had earlier, because David is an incredible musician. He plays the piano and the violin, and that more in-depth personal interview will be on the Verified Investing YouTube channel coming up.
Compliment. Thank you.
Of course, you can catch David interview some of the top influencers in finance, politics, economics, science, technology every day on his YouTube channel, David Lin, for the David Lin Report. Thank you again so much, and that does it for Trading the Close on this Monday. I'm Toni Valliere. Have a great day. Can we get another concert before you leave?
Absolutely, yeah. Let's do it.